Lin
Good
Van,
afternoon. Yep, go ahead, Mia.
okay. Lin Van Gelder fell in love with storytelling while working at Boeing in the satellite division a dozen years ago. She's always ready to tell a story. Today, she will be presenting an icebreaker from the engaging human path. It's quite possible that this is a true story, but you will have to judge that for yourself. Please help me welcome Advanced Communicator Bronze, Lin Van Gelder, with a speech titled A Disneyland Adventure.
Thank you, Mio, and welcome everyone. It's so nice to see everybody at Toastmasters this afternoon, especially Heba, because in my story, if it wasn't for Heba, I don't know if I would be here right now. Heba was our mentor at our club at Boeing. And if you have ever worked with aerospace engineers, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, there's a way to tell if you've met a gregarious engineer. And it's that they're looking at your shoes instead of theirs when they're talking to you. Engineers are notoriously poor communicators. So to have Heba come in and mentor our club and help us learn those skills was so wonderful. And I'm so happy she's here now. It just does my little heart good. So I've been a Toastmaster for a while, and recently my friend Catherine Magruder was talking about how much she loves Disneyland. I don't know if you know this about Catherine, but Catherine is crazy about Disneyland, and it's been killing her that Disneyland has been closed and she can't go there. And that made me remember back to a time where we went to Disneyland. And allow me to digress for a minute and share my screen. Sorry for the slight delay, folks. Can everyone see this picture?
Yes.
I'm presuming you can all see Jimmy and I at Niagara Falls, a very idyllic location where we were visiting in 1979 with his parents. When I started dating Jim, I was very lucky to find out I had a perfect boyfriend. He was honest, which really was nice. He was hardworking, kind, frugal, conscientious. He was well educated. We were both teenagers in the 1960s and 1970s. And yes, we do remember the 60s and 70s. And Jim, as you can tell from the long hair, was a little bit of a hippie. And he played music in a rock band, which was so much fun. We loved that. And he really was a good boyfriend. The nicest part for me is that Jim could talk to my parents in an intelligent manner, and my parents thought he was fantastic. Actually, at one point, my father said, "Marry this one." I said, "Dad, get real." And my father said, no, he's really got fine qualities, which turned out to be true all these years later. Jim was helpful. He would help me clean my apartment. He'd take out the trash. He'd even clean the cat's litter box. One thing that drove me a little crazy, though, is he was extremely analytical, and he often seemed to observe rather than participate. So my friends and I teased him that he was like Mr. Spock, a fictional character from Star Trek who lived by logic, not emotion. I struggled to know what Jim was thinking sometimes, but I stayed with him. And when I had saved up enough money to escape Buffalo and move to Los Angeles, Jim came with me. I thought that was pretty brave of him. He didn't know what he was getting himself into as we piled ourselves into my 65 Ford wagon with a 3 on the tree. For those of you too young to remember, that is a standard shift transmission. That old Ford had almost 200,000 miles on it, and we drove another 3,000 to come from Buffalo, New York, back to Los Angeles. That trip alone, I could probably tell 1,000 stories. Well, we arrived in Los Angeles and got settled into a tiny apartment in Lawndale. We made friends. We found jobs. We began to learn our way around. We were having fun, learning something new every weekend, and everything was new. Let me come back to Disneyland. This picture that you can now see is the Matterhorn as it existed back in the day, and the kind of cars that you would ride on in the Matterhorn. We had been to several theme parks. We'd gone to Knott's Berry Farm, we'd gone to Universal, to Disneyland. The Disneyland Imagineers are awesomely creative, both with design and technical execution. The idyllic beauty of Disneyland with the flowers, the designs, the beautifully painted structures, the costume cast members, the fun rides. What's not to like? It was especially fun that Jim's employer, American Honda, would rent out the entire park for an evening for all the employees and their families to enjoy Disneyland. That was really fun because there were no crowds. We had the park to ourselves. And at one of these evenings on this very ride you were looking at, if you notice when you get in the car in the Matterhorn, if you're sitting in the very front, there's a few places where you can hang on. I was in the very front with Jim snuggled up behind me. And as we started up the bobsled run of the Matterhorn, when we got to the top of the run, where there's no turning back and that bobsled is going to take off, Jim got this evil, sardonic laugh and reached over my shoulders and grabbed my shirt and pulled it all the way up over my head and pinned me with my own shirt to the Matterhorn. While the girls were swinging and I was screaming, and away we went on their ride while Jim laughed the whole entire time. And it was so completely out of character for him, I couldn't believe he did that. I screamed and he laughed for the entire ride on the Matterhorn. And he didn't let me go and let me pull my shirt back down until we were almost at the end of the ride. I married him anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.